You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Athan Hristodulu.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Greeks Gridiron. I am Athan Hristodulu. It is January 24th, 2022, and what a wild weekend of games we just witnessed. Saturday and Sunday were probably two of the best days of football that I myself have ever personally witnessed. Talk about every single team playing their best hand in the situation that they had. Not a single game came down to more than, I believe, 6 points, I guess, because the Chiefs and Bills went into overtime. But, I mean, it all came down to one final possession, who had the ball last and got the score. I mean, I have no words for this weekend. It was absolutely awesome. I went 1-3 in my playoff predictions, and quite honestly, I don't even care. I was on the edge. Saturday was great, much more defensive than anything else, defensive battles. Then on Sunday, you got like you had defensive stands, punt blocks for touchdowns, late interception heroics with a kicker who said, I guess we're going to the AFC Championship before booting a game winner. I mean, and then on Sunday, you had comebacks that were thwarted by massive Hail Mary passes to Cooper Kupp. And then, Sunday night's game was just Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes pulling out their swords and just swinging for the fences, throwing bombs on each other. I mean, what a weekend of football. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. You literally got everything out of the game that you could possibly have, from the defenses to offenses to special teams. One group from at least one team did one of those amazing things, and it was just unbelievable to watch. So I hope you guys are ready for my reactions to all the games. I will be going over each and every team and my thoughts on how they played and where they are going forward if they're not continuing in the playoffs. So make sure you like the video. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Follow the socials down below. If you do not follow me on Twitter, I'm active on there pretty often. Instagram, yeah, I'm kind of working on getting myself into the Instagram world a little bit more. I'm not a super big pictures person and whatnot, but I figured I can kind of, I post my updates for when my episodes are going up, and I'm going to slowly be putting my life in there a little bit more as we kind of go along. So make sure you follow the socials. Now, let's discuss this weekend. My goodness. And before I get going, I do want to say this, because I am a man of my word. Mike B., you've been a follower for quite some time now. I feel like I talk to you almost every other week, if not every week, in the comment section down below, and I appreciate you. I do have to give you your shout out, as I told you I would. We had made the bet. I had told him, had the Packers lost the game and 49ers moved on to the NFC Championship, I would give him his shout out for schooling me in that pick. And of course, I will, give you that shout out there. So congrats to your Niners on that big W. Like I said, I am a man of my word. I want to make sure I told you I'd get it done at the beginning of the video. So congrats to you guys and the 49ers. Big win over the Packers there. Let's start breaking down some of these teams. Now, first thing we'll start with, I'll go in order of the games. I'll start with the winners and then talk the losers of each game. So with the Bengals, man, the Bengals and Titans, what a defensive standoff that game was. Not one that I think anyone really expected to be so either. That was the crazy thing about that whole game, is that, you had an offense that had a ground game that was so explosive in Tennessee, and then you had the Bengals, who have this offensive firepower with, through the air, on the ground. They can get it done both ways realistically if necessary. But I mean, it really just boiled down to quarterback mistakes, and Ryan Tannehill kind of came out with most of them. Joe Burrow for the night, really strong game for him. The Bengals looked really good overall, but Burrow had an excellent night, 348 yards. He did have an interception though, but the dude is just ice cold. When it matters most, he can get the job done. The game wasn't necessarily going his way. Some missed passes here and there, the interception, of course, but when it mattered most, he was able to he's so calm, cool, and collected in such a big moment, and it does not feel like it really affects him. I mean, he faced so much pressure. He was sacked a record 9 times in a playoff game. I mean, the offensive line was just letting everybody into the house party. It was crazy, but he still kept his poise. Then the run defense. Talk about being able to shut down the best running back in the NFL. Henry had only 62 total yards. Or no, I'm sorry, not Henry. Derrick Henry only had, he did have 62 total yards. But, I mean, overall, the defense came to play. The offense did an excellent job when it mattered most. I am concerned about this offensive line. However, they are going to be playing the Chiefs. They played fairly well against Cincinnati the last time these two teams met, and they got the W, but I am worried about that offensive line. They need to work out at least some of those kinks. If you can drop that 9 sacks number down to like 5 or 4 sacks, you're looking a lot better going up against Kansas City. I also don't feel that Kansas City has quite as an aggressive pass rush as Tennessee does, so that does, I expect that number to look differently going into that playoff game. You're also visiting the Chiefs this time as opposed to playing them at home, so very exciting matchup for the AFC Championship there, but I love what the Bengals are doing. I picked against them because I just felt like I just had a feeling that, I maybe the Titans would come out and get the win here. I was rooting for the Bengals the whole way through, so again, I got that prediction wrong, but hell, I am happy that they got the win. For the Tennessee Titans, talk about just like a collapse when you are your healthiest as well, which is pretty crazy. Everyone was talking about it. They had the week off. Everyone's coming back. Derrick Henry, Julio Jones, A.J. Brown, they finally have their whole offense there to play. Everyone was there, and it just boiled down to a really, really inefficient game by the quarterback, really. I mean, the O-line couldn't really open up any lanes for Derrick Henry, like I had mentioned. Foreman, though, he had a pretty solid game, 4 rushes for 66 yards. However, Tannehill, man, that is ultimately what cost them the game. And I hate to just be like, it's Tannehill's fault, but he really looked like the quarterback from Miami more so than the quarterback that's been in Tennessee these last few years, because he has been one of the most efficient quarterbacks since coming to Tennessee. But yeah, Tannehill, just mistake after mistake, 3 interceptions. I don't really know what happened. Maybe it was just because when you think back, it wasn't like the pass rush that Cincinnati was bringing was too heavy or too crazy. It just felt like maybe he was trying to make too many plays happen. The Bengals really forced Tannehill to have to win the game, and it just did not work well for Tennessee when it boiled down to it. But the defense, man, I do want to shout out the defense. Talk about an incredible pass rush. What a day for them. The secondary played pretty well. Ultimately, though, they were just kind of getting it felt like you'd get a stop, then gashed for a play. Stop, gashed for a play. Like the Burrow kept being able to extend drives and allowing those field goals to happen there. It was interesting. It felt like you take 1 step forward, 2 steps back, or like 2 good steps forward and then 3 steps back or something like that. It was really, really weird because they would play really well and then get ripped and gashed for really big gains through the air. Jamar Chase had 5 catches for over 100 yards. I mean, it was just a very interesting scenario to watch. I've never seen a defense play so well, but then also get gashed at the same time. It was like a really weird thing going on there. I fully expect this team to be back next year. This Titans group, I think, battle tested. They dealt with a lot of injuries. The fact that they even made the number 1 seed is like an absolute miracle. So shout out to them for being able to get that job done and fighting through all of that adversity. But I fully expect them to be back fighting for a playoff spot next year as well. Mike Vrabel's done an excellent job there. I really like the entire group that they have. Hopefully they can get a healthier year from Derrick Henry and Julio Jones, because I feel like with all of those guys in the fold consistently, this will be a much more threatening offense. Now, 49ers and the Green Bay Packers. Defensive standoff in the tundra, very cold game. You could tell that it was affecting the players as well. People talk about, Lambeau Field and its home field advantage it used to have. It's not a home field advantage anymore. I don't really think that anyone enjoys playing in that cold of football. It's fun to play in the snow, but if it's just freezing and, it's like it's not a good time. It really isn't a good time. You could tell the field was pretty frozen, especially towards the sidelines. Players were just dropping open catches on both sides of the football. Definitely not one team more than the other. It felt like everyone was just kind of dropping stuff. It was ugly. For the 49ers offensively, not a great game at all. Jimmy Garoppolo did not really look good. 131 yards and an interception. Did not really play well, but he's dealing with a shoulder injury, the thumb plus the cold. I'd be surprised if he was even able to feel half of his arm during that entire game through just like the pain he was probably feeling. It obviously affected him there. On top of that, the rushing game was pretty limited. There wasn't really a ton going on for them up until late into the game. Deebo Samuel, not a non-factor, but definitely not the factor that he has been through the entirety of the season so far. I do have to say, that defense in San Francisco is unbelievable. 5 sacks on Rodgers. You limited him to 225 yards, no touchdowns. He is Aaron Rodgers is an excellent quarterback, and for the defense to fluster him the way that he did and shut the offense down the way that they did, an incredible standoff from the 49ers. Of course, the special teams as well, taking advantage of a Packers team that has not really been good at special teams for the last couple of years now. So many mistakes that you can list off. And in this game, the blocked punt in your pretty much own end zone, it felt like, they were 5 yards out from the end zone line where the punter was standing. Just talk about being aggressive and taking advantage of a situation when you have your opportunity. That was best case scenario for the 49ers, and they got the job done. I'm concerned about Jimmy Garoppolo and him being able to play with all these injuries that he has here because he clearly wasn't looking great. So hopefully he's on the mend for the week and just trying to rest and relax that shoulder and thumb. I'm very curious to see how much it's bothering him. But with Kyle Shanahan and Deebo Samuel there, anything seems to be possible for this 49ers team at this point. For the Packers, overall for number one seeds, just what a collapse, I guess you could say, is kind of how you could sum up this weekend. Not a great showing by either of them. Tennessee put up 16 points. The Packers, they put up 10 points, and you would have expected to see a lot more from both of these teams, especially getting the week off to be well rested and ready to roll. There was no real ability to run the football. They were pretty much held to be a one-dimensional team the entirety of the game. The offensive line, despite the fact getting David Bakhtiari back, just did not look like they were in sync the entirety of the game. It felt like they had not been playing together the whole year just by how they looked. You almost have to ask the question, would they have been better off not trying to force David Bakhtiari back and just have the offensive line play the way it had been, where they were all kind of gelling and meshing, and they had been. I feel like offensive line is so specific in that you need to have that cohesion and that consistency together because they all play off of each other. And after an entire year's worth of playing together, you develop tendencies and things to work together, and you trust them in certain situations to hand off players and stuff like that to each other. So I'm curious if bringing Bakhtiari back almost hurt this offensive line. Obviously, Bakhtiari is an excellent player, but the cohesion just did not feel like it was there. The defense, awesome job. They did enough to win the game. I've got to say that. Rashawn Gary was a man amongst boys the way he was playing defense during this game. It was awesome to watch him do his thing and dominate. The guy looked awesome. I believe he had 2.5 sacks on the night, just wreaking complete havoc in the trenches. Now, though, we're left, I guess, just asking what is going to happen with Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, it's not last season where everyone was kind of freaked out when they found out that Rodgers was trying to get out. Nobody really knows what his plans are. It sounds like he's going to take some time to think about it. He will be letting people know before free agency from the sounds of it. But you have to wonder, was that the last time that we saw Aaron Rodgers suit up in a Green Bay Packers uniform? Is he going to retire? Is he going to request a trade? That is the option that is on the table for him that was kind of made in voiding the last year on his contract. So there is a lot to look into. A lot to keep an eye on, and this will be one of those storylines that I think we're listening to well into come March at least, depending on how things shake out here. Now, let's talk Sunday. Like I said, Saturday was the defensive standoffs. Defenses just thumping each other, throwing their heavyweight stuff at each other. It was awesome just watching heavyweights, throw haymakers back and forth at each other. On offense, though, for Sunday, what a game. For both of them, honestly. You have the comeback that was thwarted in the Rams and Bucks, and then you had that shootout, what felt like from the Wild West, two gunslingers just whipping the football back and forth all over the field. For the Rams, what an ending. Cooper Kupp, I'm sorry, is the best route runner in the league, and in my opinion right now, the best wide receiver in football. I love Davante Adams, and I have spent the year praising Davante Adams. But I don't think I see anyone as open as Cooper Kupp is every single game. He finds his way through that defense. It feels like 9, 10, 11, 12 times a game, and it's just unbelievable what he can do as a wide receiver. Everyone's praising Matthew Stafford, and I'm going to, trust me, I will too, but I want to make sure that Cooper Kupp here gets his spotlight. 9 catches, 183 yards, a touchdown to boot, and that clutch couple of catches that he had at the end of the game there. The first one to the sideline, which was huge, and then the second one that went down the field when he went over the top. The unbelievable performance by Cooper Kupp, man. The guy is a freak of nature, and the Stafford to Kupp connection is a problem. We'll just leave it at that. The first half, though, offense was completely lights out, moving the ball at will, put up 20 points going into halftime, and then coming out of the gate pretty early, they were able to get another score as well. Stafford, 366 yards, 2 touchdowns, looked calm and cool the entire game. His awareness to get the ball spiked and make sure that the referees were able to set it up and everything during that late last few seconds there of the game to win before the field goal. I mean, Stafford looked like the Matthew Stafford that I have always believed in. I have been a fan of Matthew Stafford since the early days of his career in Detroit. And, when I really was like, I'm sold on this guy, and you can find it on sound effects just about anywhere that the NFL posts videos. It was him going up in that game where he hurt his shoulder. He could barely even like move it. And he's like sitting there, one arm hanging, but had his right arm so he could still throw the football and throw a strike in for a touchdown. You could tell he was hurting. He went back into the game, threw the touchdown pass, did what he had to do to get the win. And that was his rookie year. That was when I knew, because I watched that game happen as it happened. That's when I knew Matthew Stafford was that dude. And while people say, he's had guys like Calvin Johnson and Reggie Bush, and, there have been players in his career surrounding him, Ndamukong Suh at one point, and he could just never get it done in Detroit. There is something about that organization that will be spinning and kicking the wheels for what feels like forever. And quite honestly, I don't know if I will ever see a Detroit Lions even playoff win in my lifetime, never mind a Super Bowl. Matthew Stafford was never the problem in Detroit. I think he did the most with what he could, and the few years that he made it to the playoffs, it was never really him that was letting down the Lions. It was that defense. So I want to stress that. Stafford was never the problem. The guy is fantastic. And then the defense. The defense. Unbelievable game. I said it going in with my preview that they play the style of football that can beat Tom Brady, bringing the pressure each and every single play. You have Aaron Donald lining up with Von Miller, and Von Miller knows how to get to Tom Brady. He's done it a couple of times before and taken him down. He had 7.5 sacks. He added another one this weekend. This was how you needed to beat Brady, and they played it to a T. I will say this, though. McVay took the foot off the gas, and he almost let Tom Brady do to him what he did to Kyle Shanahan on the Falcons a few years ago. Do not take your foot off the gas. You press it, and you press it hard, and you stomp them out and put the game away. I don't know why they stopped giving the ball to Matt Stafford. He had the hot hand all game. It was awesome to see the game end the way it did, but Stafford himself said it. There was a few plays that, if they could have had, he was probably kneeling rather than trying to throw a Hail Mary bomb to win the game. But ultimately, I think that if he had trusted Stafford just a little bit more, and I understand he doesn't want to put too much on his shoulders, I don't think that whole late game nonsense even happens, and we're not even talking about these Hail Mary throws. Now for the Bucs. A lot of penalties early on. Ndamukong Suh, a very emotional type of player. Brady, he can be pretty hot himself. He was just joking earlier this week that, he gets away with some unsportsmanlike. I don't know what was said. And Sean Hockley said that, Brady said something to him with a derogative tone and words and whatnot, and that was why he got the unsportsmanlike. I don't know what was said, but pretty interesting situation with all of that. I will say, though, that they went down swinging, and it is typical of Brady to not just give up. Very rarely does he ever just get rolled over in his career, and this was not one of those days. Unfortunately, though, for this defense, it just took way too long for them to really get it together. That second half, lights out game. 3 forced fumbles, held them to only 7 points in that second half, but it was that first half that they were just really getting torched, and it was not a good one. The offensive line, too, minus Tristan Wirfs, was just getting manhandled. And, you could say, it was just one lineman. Tristan Wirfs he's borderline an all-pro. I think he is an all-pro this year. I can't remember if he is or not, but I mean, he's a Pro Bowl tackle at least. The guy is an absolute monster on the right side there. And I mean, the pressure just was coming all game long for them. And then on top of that, you want to talk about a run D being successful, shutting things down, preventing the Buccaneers from being able to move the ball the way they'd want to on the ground. 14 carries, only 51 yards, was not the balance that they needed to win this game. And I even talked about it in my preview. They needed to run the football at least effectively to keep a balance there, keep the defense honest. But it felt like they were just throwing all game long, and the pass rush just kept teeing off on Brady left and right. I'm very curious now, though, to see where Brady goes, if he decides to retire, if he decides to come back, which way he decides to take his career going forward. Whatever he decides to do, hats off to him in the career that he's had. Part of me does not feel like he's done, though. I feel like he was this close to working his way into a back-to-back NFC Championship appearance, and had they gotten blown out, like and that final score was 27-10 or maybe even like 34 or something like that to 10 to 17, maybe Brady just opts to hang it up because he doesn't think that they can get it done again. However, they were this close despite everything that they had dealt with injuries and Brown leaving and whatnot. Something tells me he might be back for another year. We'll have to see. There's been a lot of talk about it, but something tells me he might be back. And now, for the main event of this whole weekend, and honestly, I don't think it could have ended more fittingly than watching Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes just absolutely show up and show out for, 65, 66, 67 minutes, however long overtime lasted. It was like watching just two tanks take shots at each other back and forth until one finally went down. Like, the offensive play that was going on in this game was some of the craziest stuff I'd ever seen. We were probably about at halftime or so where I was, I'm texting some of my friends telling them, this is like Manning and Brady from that 2007 AFC Championship game when Manning ended up taking the Colts to the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 41. That was the exact feeling that I had, and it was it was like a similar idea, except just far more athletic when you're watching it happen. Because Manning and Brady, not the scrambling quarterbacks that they were the guys that sat in the pocket and just dissected defenses as they went along. But Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen's ability to extend the plays the way they have, if you are not the Chiefs or the Bills, or I would say like the Rams, you better be sitting there and thinking about your quarterback and thinking to yourself, can I keep up with that for the next 10 years? Because if your answer is not a definitive yes, and honestly, I think only the Rams right now could probably keep up with that, you need to find a new quarterback, because there is a problem that's brewing in the AFC right now. We just watched the AFC be dominated by basically three quarterbacks for about 17 some odd years. If you did not realize, Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady, and Peyton Manning represented the AFC in the Super Bowl from like 2001 up until 2018. I think that was the last time that Brady and the Patriots made it to the AFC title game and to the Super Bowl. So it's about to continue again, and this time it's going to be Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert are probably the only two other guys that I could think realistically can keep up with this. And the Bengals and Joe Burrow. And now I'm saying that out loud, I said I think only the Rams when I was saying teams that could probably keep up. Bengals, Joe Burrow, of course, they could probably keep up as well. But yeah, what a game. Josh Allen's a freaking tank, man. The dude had 9 touchdowns and 0 turnovers this playoff run, and I mean, it wasn't enough, which is crazy. That's absolutely crazy. The fact that you can that's statistically one of the best playoff performances to not even go past the divisional round. I mean, who knows what he could have done during the championship and Super Bowl had he made it that far. The defense, though, went out the door for this game pretty much during the second half. It was a little bit tighter during the first half. Defenses played a lot better, but I don't know if it's just lack of depth or what it is, but like, once we got into that second half, things just kind of went all out of control. And then late in the game, like those last few minutes, 25 points scored in the final like 2 minutes or so or something like that. That's absolutely ridiculous and just downright terrible for the defenses. It was fun to watch, but terrible for the defenses. And, while you may disagree with the playoff coin toss and whatnot, and honestly, for a while, I didn't really think it was that big of a deal. Like when Patrick Mahomes didn't get his shot against Brady a few years ago, I didn't really care too much about it because like it is what it is, and it's been what it's been for so long. But at this point, I would like to see a format change in a sense that like I don't want to see the other team. I don't want to see a team win a game because at this point, both defenses are just so gassed that, whoever gets the ball last is going to win. I don't really like that idea. Like I want everyone to have a shot. And when you have two quarterbacks playing like this, you want, for the sake of the game, to see both quarterbacks get a shot. So I think there should be some sort of format change. I don't know what the change should be. They don't pay me to figure that out, so I will leave that up to the experts. But I would like to see something change. But aside from that, even if you disagree with the coin toss, the big issue, and it's funny because everyone's talking like, 13 seconds. Patrick Mahomes made it down in 13 seconds. He made it down in about 10 because there was 3 seconds on the clock when they kicked that field goal. In about 10 seconds, they let Patrick Mahomes go for 2 plays right into field goal range. It wasn't even 13. It was 10 seconds. It was even less than that because they had the 3 to kick the field goal. All that I know is the Bills are set. This is an excellent team. It really came down to just a coin toss and who got the ball last. They need to work on their offensive line and be able to open up that ground game because, again, you can't. This was anyone's game, especially at the end there. And while had the Bills won, everyone would be like, the Bills were built to beat the Chiefs and they got it done. They lost now and they weren't built to beat the Chiefs, clearly. They need to be able to run the ball more effectively. I think the Chiefs need to as well, but the Chiefs had some pretty big runs. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had a few rips in that game. I want to see them work on the O-line and also just like increase the depth that they have, especially on the defensive line, just to have more guys that are effective and can stay fresh late in the game so they can pressure the pocket and prevent what happened to them in 10 seconds happen again in the future. For the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes doing his Patrick Mahomes type thing. This is his 4th straight title appearance now in 4 years as a starter. The only person who has started off better was Brady, I guess. And even then, Brady just had the rings really early on. Mahomes might not have as many Super Bowl titles already, but if Mahomes doesn't end his career with 4 rings at least, there was a problem because he is so good and this team is so good. They definitely have a good case for Mahomes to be able to get a ring or 2 again at least before his career is up, and it's still so early in that time frame. But Mahomes, man, he showed exactly why he's the best in the biz. And then with weapons like Tyreek Hill, 11 catches, 150 yards, a touchdown, and Kelsey, who had 8 catches, 96 yards, and a touchdown as well. Like, how do you lose when you're playing this well? They had that little stumble during the early part of the season, but like at that point, that was a totally different team, and that's out the window. When this team is playing well and they're meshing well and they're not making mistakes and balls aren't bouncing off receivers' hands into defenders' hands, the Chiefs are the best in the AFC, man. The Bengals, I love them, and don't get me wrong, I want to see them get the upset, and I want them to take that title of best in the AFC from them, but the Chiefs just have so much firepower, and the Bengals are going to be in for the game of their lives in Arrowhead next week. While they do come away with a massive win, I will say for the Chiefs, you have to be worried about what they let Buffalo do. I think Joe Burrow and that Bengals offense, they have 3 very good wide receivers, a good tight end in CJ Uzomah, a defense that, depending on the week, is pretty effective, but also sometimes can let some things get by them. You have to be worried. That's all I'm saying. Do not think that the Bengals are going to come in and get rolled over. I think it's going to be a tight game. I think it's going to be a really good game. And there is a really good shot that the Bengals come out of that game upset winners. But, just don't forget that there was a very, very severe lack of pass rush in this one. And if Burrow's getting the ball out quick and, the secondary's struggling, Tyrann Mathieu went out of this game and there was a clear issue over the top. If he's not playing next week, that's going to definitely be a big loss for them. We are in for one hell of a championship Sunday is all I've got to say. I'm ready to see it. After this weekend. This is like my most favorite, but also it's like the saddest part of the year. You get awesome playoff games like this weekend, but you know that there's only 3 games left now. You have the championship games and the Super Bowl, and of course the Pro Bowl. But I mean, the Pro Bowl is what it is. I would love to know what you guys thought of this weekend in the comment section down below. It was awesome to watch. I'm very curious if you guys agree. Let me know who you think's going to come out on top in this week's games. We'll be previewing and talking about the NFL honors and stuff like that as well coming up. So make sure you hit that sub button, like the video to support the channel. Do not miss the content I got coming for you guys this weekend. I appreciate you all for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Have a great start to your week, and I will see you guys next time.